Welcome back to Wildcard Workshop. Today we're going to continue on with our Dino Shrine structure. It's starting to become a tongue twister. We're going to look at the multi-use system, which is the system that we can use to add our own options to those radial wheels that you see when you're looking at structures or creatures or players in Ark. So we're going to show you how to add your own options to that. We're also going to show you how to set up debug code, snippets of logic that only run when in the dev kit itself, but won't run in the live game. This can be useful for setting up debug systems in the same build without having to recook. We're going to use the multi-use system to set up sort of our entry point for calling a UI, which we'll cover in the next video, and using that UI to set our shrine settings and then save them out to disk. So let's go ahead and open up the dev kit and I'll show you how it's done. So here we are back in the good old dev kit. Once again, I have already made the changes to the mod. You will be able to download the files below. The first thing we did is we popped open our Dino Shrine Save class. And if you remember, this is the class that is used to serialize data out to file so that we can load it up the next time the game is loaded. Now, there's not a big change here. All we did was we added another function, and that is change shrine data. And the way this works is it takes a structure ID, a new shrine data struct, and much like our get shrine data, it uses the Dino Shrine registry array as a way to quickly get the index for this array so that we don't have to iterate and break every single entry in order to figure out if it's a matching item. So we use that and we override the existing element here with a new one. So this now gives us a way to set and change our settings. Now, the next thing we did, and everything else, is in the Dino Shrine BP again. Is it's sort of becoming the hub for most of the functionality. Although that'll change a little bit in the next video when we start looking at UMG, and you'll understand why then. But in here, the functions that we did, okay. Oh, first of all, I made some changes. These were mostly organizational changes. You'll notice the big chunk of settings logic up here is now gone. What it is I took all of that out and I put it in its own function here in load shrine settings. And then here where we actually got our shrine save instance, I put that in its own function as well because we use it somewhere else. And that is right here. So this chunk should look familiar. It's just doing the same thing where we check to see if a save exists. If not, we create it. If it does, well, in either instance, we grab it and then we put it back. Or we return it in the function. And we do that here, and this is all the same as it was before, except that now this is collapsed down. Now we also have a save shrine settings, and this is a new function. It basically works sort of like the get shrine save, but this is where we're actually setting any changes that we've made to this variable, to this struct. Those will get saved out to the shrine save object, and then afterwards it saves it to file and then reinitializes the shrine. You'll find out here I added an event. So this is sort of like a return event to get back out to this event graph where all of this logic is. So this will just, when this is called right here, it'll call out here on the event graph and then reset all of this. Now, this is not the most efficient way. You'll notice there is sort of an exploitable thing that occurs when we're actually using it. We're not worried about that right now. We want to get the functionality working, and then we want to go back and make, the polish changes and the bug fixes, get a working product, and then get it working better. So now there's two new things up here as well. Now these are not actually new functions. What these are is these are overridden functions. You will find these on the left side here. You'll find this section that says overridable functions. These BP get multi-use entries and BP try multi-use, they are listed here. And the way to use them is you find them in the list, you right click, and then you say implement function. And then what'll happen is you'll find that it'll open up a new function and it'll have these two nodes right here with their parameters already set. And their parameters cannot be changed. This is because it is inheriting this function from the parent. So this is how we can pass on that common functionality to child classes. So now these multi-use functions, these are not enabled by default. To get these working, you want to come back to the defaults and you want to find and make sure that blueprint multi-use entries and enable multi-use are both checked. Okay? That'll make it so that these functions will actually get fired. So let's look at BP get multi-use entries, because this is sort of our entry point for this system. It gives us an array of multi-use entries. Now, because this is an array of structs, we don't want to edit it, because structs, this is not being passed by reference. This is basically a copy. This array is a copy of the one already existing. So if we make changes to this, these are probably not going to actually make it out to the one that's actually being used. So we save this to a local variable, which we create right here. Just create a new local variable, you set its type to multi-use entry, and set it as an array. Then we save this out to there. Now, this first one here, where we're adding to this MU buffer, is the option that we're actually going to use in the live game. For now, it's not going to actually do anything, but we're creating it to sort of set our slot. So the options that you need to make sure that you mess with are the use string. This is the text that appears for the option. And the use index. Now, I suggest using something high up and not something that is like 10,000. Use like 10,242. Because these could cause conflicts with other ones from other mods or existing multi-use entries on a structure. So pick something high up there in the integer and just make sure it's something that's just nobody would really think to use it. It would not be a common first thing on your mind, 10,000 or 20,000 or 15,000. So I chose 15,679 as the use index. And this is sort of like a key. We'll use this in a moment, and I'll show you how. Now, for this, I actually overrode the use text color, and what this does is it lets me set the color of that text on the radial menu. And there's some other options as well. Entry activation timer, default entry activation timer. These are for like locking the option for a period of time. Priorities for ordering. There is a secondary multi-use, which is like in structures, there's the button in the inventory UI. You can set it to use that instead of the radial menu. A lot of these you'll want to just kind of experiment with, see how they work. There's a lot of different things that you can do here. It's pretty malleable. Now, after that, I do a branch, and this is what I was talking about with debug code. Okay, this is shipping function. This is a pure function, and it returns bool that in the dev kit it returns false. In the live game, it returns true. So in the dev kit, if we run this code, it'll come down this branch, and we'll see these other options appear. If it's in the live game, it'll skip them, and we won't see them. So in the dev kit, I wanted to add these other three options, and you'll see they're named Debug 1, Debug 2, and Debug 3. They do the same thing as the other one, override text color, and I give it a color. This is an RGB alpha struct. It drives me nuts that RGB is backwards. It's BGR. But, don't let it get you confused if you are using like a color picker wheel, because they tend to order their numbers in RGB. So reverse the RGB order for putting them in the struct. After we add these three options, and you'll notice this one is 15679, this one is 15676, 677, and 678. You want to make sure that all of your multi-use entries have different use indexes. Now this one is higher because I want it to appear at the 12 o'clock position on the radial menu. So it puts it there for me if I make it the last one. Now after we've added all of our multi-use entries, to this array right here, we return it. So we're giving our modified array back. Now something to keep in mind is this runs on the server side, and only the server side. And it runs many times. It just keeps firing anytime that a player is looking at a structure or a creature. So you want to make sure that you're not doing any complicated operations in here, because it's going to start slowing things down if it can't keep up. So be efficient here. Small things. Add some stuff to the structs. Maybe some small checks like this is shipping. Okay? But nothing that's going to take a prolonged period of time in order to finish an operation. Otherwise, you're going to run into problems. Now, the next function that we overrode is this BP try multi-use. Now, this also fires on the server. Now, what we do here is you'll see we get try multi-use, and we get two parameters for PC, and this is for player controller reference, and the use index. Now, the use index is the value we put in here. So you'll notice that these are actually in sequence: 15, 6, 7, 6, 7, 7, 7, 8, and 7, 9. And the reason I do this is because we can take this use index, pop it on a switch on int, and then just from the lowest index, just add a bunch of pins. And then based on this use index, decides what code we run. This is how the multi-use works, is when an option is selected, this function is fired with the use index that was selected. So based on that, these three are our debug options. Now up here, I'm creating new shrine data. So this one is like an Anki with the Leopleurodon buff. This one is a Dimorphodon with the Leopleurodon buff, but the visual effect is disabled. This one is a dung beetle. And you'll notice that they all have different respawn delays. So these are three different structs that are being set to our persistence settings variable based on the option that's selected. Afterwards, it calls that save shrine settings function that we created earlier, which sends all of our persistence settings back to the save file, saves the save file, and then reinitializes the shrine so that all of our code here in the event graph will run with the proper settings. After that, it goes to the return node. Now you'll notice there's this return value bool. If this is all you need to do is work on the server side, you can leave this empty. If you check this bool, there is another function that will be fired, and it's right here. It's called BP client do multi-use. If we implement this, you'll see it's got the same parameters as we saw on try multi-use. Except this one runs on the client side. So if that's what you need, is something to fire only on the client side, which this is good for if you need like a visual change to occur, this is a good way to do it. For the most part though, anything important should happen here on the server side function. So I'm going to delete this function because I don't need it. I don't need to override it. BP client do multi-use, delete. And that's how you get rid of a function that you've overridden as well. So now let's go ahead and go back out and I'll show you how that it works. Go ahead and minimize that. We've already got our primal game data set in the map. We'll hit play. And I'll come over here to the primal item structure Dino Shrine. Hit quantity 10. Now, put down a few of these. And you notice nothing's spawning, and that's because in the save data, I removed all of the default options that were there. So now it only starts spawning things when I ask it to, or when I change the settings to something that's actually valid. So let's go ahead and set down a few. So you'll notice there's that debug 3 there. The highest option available will probably, the option that shows up here is going to be the one that shows up as the E option, usually. And you'll see they've all got different colors, like this one's orange, these ones are purple. Those are the colors I chose for these text options. So let's set debug 1. Oh, look, there's our Anki. And it's got the visual settings. Cool. And then we'll set debug 2. That one's got a dimorph, no visual. And debug 3. There's our dung beetle. And then you'll notice we've got the change dino settings option, but we didn't actually do anything with the use index in BP try multi-use. So right now, it's not actually going to do anything. We'll take care of that in the next episode. But for instance, if I come over here to this Anki, do cheat kill, and I'm going to miss because it takes me a long time to type that. And there we go. Now if we wait, you'll notice the last settings that I changed were for the dung beetle. Now if we wait, the first one that we set with the Anki should respawn an Anki, not a dung beetle. There it is. So now you see that each of these shrines has separate settings, and they are each tracking their own creature. So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to look at setting up the UI so that we can manually change these creatures. And what I'm thinking I might do is, rather than trying to forcibly give it an entire list of creatures, we might make this so that you can bring the shrine a sacrificial creature. And then it'll kill that creature and then save its class into its memory so that it can be used again in the future as the shrine creature. And I'll show you how that works. Oh, right. And if we look in our shrine save file, you'll see there's quite a few entries in here. These are all entries for separate structures. If we were to do this in the live game, which it wouldn't work right now because these debug settings won't show up, the debug options, these ones right here won't show up in the live game. So all we would have is this one option that doesn't do anything yet. But if we did have the debug settings working in the live game, these would get saved out, and the next time we loaded the game, the structure would load these. And that's all there is to it. So now you should have an understanding of how multi-use works. It's not nearly as complicated as we thought it was the first times we saw it in the modding community. So it's become a big help for giving us a hook on how to add to structures. And this can also be used with buffs to add multi-use items to existing players and creatures. So that can be useful. As I said, in the next video, we'll start covering UIs a bit. We're not going to go into super high depth on all of the options available. We're going to sort of cover what we need in order to make our UI, but it should give you the information that you need to be able to branch out and understand more about UMG. which is UE4's system for creating UIs. So until next time, happy modding!